Hi everybody, it's Mrs. Mancuso. I want to do some Instagram lives in preparation for the exam. So it's June 4th. I guess the phone's ringing. Weird, the home phone. Ugh. So I'm going to go through the January 2017 exam. So if you want help, go ahead, print out the January 2017 exam. If you type in Regents Chemistry, it'll bring you to a website that has all the exams. So it'll show a list. Go to January 2017 and print it out. So it's for my class, it was our practice exam number 3. So I'm just going to go right on through these. If I start going too fast, I apologize, but this is what I'm going to do today. It'll help you. It's a Regents. I'm going to go through the whole thing right now. I'm actually going to save this all to my YouTube. So my YouTube, if you search Nancy Mancuso, you'll see my face, and then go to the playlists, and under playlist, there's Regents Chem Review. And so if you go on there, I'm actually going to save all of my videos, all of my reviews that I do. So I want to go through a bunch of Regents exams. I also have a lot of other things on this Regents Chem Review. You can go in and you can watch all sorts of things that might help you study for the exam. And you can watch them by concept. The concept ones are really short. The ones where I go through exams, like what I'm going to do tonight, are longer. So let's get started. So which statement describes the location of 2 types of subatomic particles in a helium atom? So it's asking me about the particles. So if you think about an atom, you got a nucleus, it's got protons and neutrons in it, and you got electrons out here. So think about what you know before you read these choices. It'll make it much easier to choose. So protons and neutrons are located in the nucleus? Absolutely. If we look at the other ones, why are they wrong? Protons and neutrons are not outside, they're inside. Protons and electrons are in. No, electrons aren't in. And then protons and electrons are outside. Nope, protons aren't outside. All right, an atom that contains 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons has a mass. So mass is equal to the nucleus. The P's plus the N's equals the nucleus. So if I've got 6 protons and 6 neutrons, I have a mass of 12. So I right away cross these out. So what is it? 12 U's or 12 G's? Well, one atom is certainly not going to weigh 12 grams. But then if you go over here to your reference table, you can see what a U is. So a U is an atomic mass unit. Sorry, you can't really see that. Atomic mass unit. So I definitely want to pick the U. All right, which term identifies the most probable location of an electron in the wave mechanical model? So the electrons are out here, so that's an orbital. Which element has atoms in the ground state with the greatest number of valence? So I got to go to my reference table and look up how many valence each of these has. So tin is SN. It has 4. Sulfur has 6. Arsenic has 5. And fluorine has 7. So fluorine wins. All right, which group on the periodic table has 2 elements that are gases? All right, I know everybody is a gas in group 18. These are my noble gases. So if I go just 1 over, these first 2 are gases. And I know as I move this way, they're all solids because these are all metals. So 2 of them, I just want to go right here. Right away, you can cross off group 1 and group 2 because they're metals. All right, which list of elements contains a metal, a metalloid, and a nonmetal? That means I want 1 on the left, 1 on the right, and 1 on the stairs. All right, so first choice, I've got AG. AG is definitely a metal. SI, definitely a metalloid. It's got 2 sides touching the stairs. And I, that's a nonmetal. So that's my answer. If I go through these other choices, GE and AS are both metalloids. Neither one's a metal, so I cross that one off. This one, K and Cu, potassium and copper, those are both metals. SCl and AR, that's 3 nonmetals, so that's not going to work. All right, what is the charge of the nucleus of a copper atom? So the tricky thing about this question is they only want the nucleus. I've got protons and neutrons in the nucleus. Neutrons don't have a charge, so all this is asking me is how many protons are there. So I go to copper. Copper is element 29. Protons are positive, so plus 29 would be my answer. All right, next one. At STP, oxygen O2 and O3 have different properties because O3 has. So they're both oxygen, but the thing is they have different structures, and different structures lead to different properties. So that's my answer. A compound is a substance composed of two or more elements that are. So if I have a compound, think of something like H2O. They're not physically mixed. It's not a mixture. But what is it? So it is chemically combined, and it's not variable because that would be that doesn't work either. So it's got to be a fixed proportion. Like, for example, H2O. It's always H2O. It's not H3O. It's not HO2. It's not H4O. It's always in the same proportion. All right, which element has the highest boiling point at standard pressure? So I've got to look up the boiling point of each one of these. So I grab my reference table. Table S, after the periodic table, I'm going to look up each one and I'm going to write it down. So magnesium has a boiling point of 1363. Sodium is less. It's 1156, so I cross it right off. RB, 961. That's less, so I cross it off. SR, 1655. That's higher, so that's my answer choice. How many pairs of electrons are shared between nitrogen atoms in a molecule of N2? So we're going to have to draw this out. You might remember that N2 has a triple bond, but just in case you don't remember it, I want to go through how you figure out how many bonds there are. So I call it looping the lonelies. So if I have a nitrogen and a nitrogen, nitrogen has 5 valence electrons, so I put on the 5 dots. And there's another nitrogen, so there's its 5 dots. And then connect them. 1, 2, 3 connections tells me that there would be a triple bond between them. So the question is, how many pairs of electrons? If I have a triple bond, I have 1, 2, 3 pairs of electrons being shared. 6 total electrons, but the question asks me how many pairs. All right, a molecule must be nonpolar if. So it's not asking me about the bond, it's asking me about the molecule. And if it's nonpolar, that means there's no pulling. So if there's no pulling, I am looking for symmetrical and even. So there it is, has a symmetrical charge distribution. All right, moving on. Which property is used to determine the degree of polarity? So if I wanted to tell if there was a pull or not, I just look up their electronegativity. And the difference in electronegativity, if it's 0.5 or higher, it's polar. In a chemical reaction, a catalyst provides an alternate reaction pathway that. All right, so a catalyst lowers the activation energy. So there it is. And it increases the rate of the reaction. So I always tell this story about Marge. She loves to get in the middle of things. She's a catalyst. So Susie the swimmer, Bobby the basketball player. Susie's always at the gym. Susie's always at the pool. Bobby's always at the gym playing basketball. So their paths never cross. So their reaction takes a long time to happen. Their activation energy is really high, the energy needed to get them together. But instead, if I add a catalyst, I'm going to provide a new pathway. I'm going to say, Susie, my locker, Friday, 8 a.m. Bobby, my locker, Friday, 8 a.m. Now they have that alternate path, and they come together so much easier, and then, boom, they meet each other, they go to the prom. I knew eventually they were going to get married, but I might as well speed things along. So I increase the rate of the reaction, and me, as the catalyst, I remain unchanged. If you had to draw, I'm just going to do a little bit more on this one, sorry, because I feel like it comes up a lot. So if this is my reaction, first of all, that's an endothermic reaction because the reactants have less energy than the product, so a lot of energy has gone in. The heat of the reaction would be the difference between my products and my reactants. So that's my delta H, and it would come out positive, P minus R. And then this is my activation energy. Now, if I add a catalyst, I just got to grab another color pen. If I added a catalyst, I would draw a dotted line, start at the same place, go up, but not as high. So now my activation energy is this much. So my activation energy has decreased. All right, next one. Which substance can be decomposed by chemical means? So if I can decompose it chemically, it can't be an element. Cobalt's an element. Krypton is an element. Zirconium is an element. There's my choice. All right. Which sample of matter represents a mixture? So a mixture, let's see. Oh, aqueous. There we go. It immediately tells you it's mixed with water. Sometimes they give you solutions where they give you the formulas, and pick the one that has the AQ after it. All right, differences in which property allow the separation of a sample of sand and seawater by filtering. So if you filter it, picture you got a flask here, and you got some a funnel, and you have filter paper. So what separates sand and seawater? The sand particles are big, and they get caught in the filter paper. So that's all about particle size. All right, which process is a chemical change? If I have a chemical change, I got to change the properties of the substance. I got to change what it is. So evaporating is just changing it physically. Sublime is to go from a solid to a gas, so that's just physical. Melting is just physical, solid to a liquid. So rusting, that's a chemical change. All right, which term represents an intermolecular force in a sample of water? So here's my H2O. The O is a little bit negative, the H's are a little bit positive. Another water would orient itself so that the H's are facing it, and that's called a hydrogen bond. All right, so the attraction between an H of one molecule and either an O, an N, or an F of another molecule is a hydrogen bond. It's a pretty strong intermolecular force of attraction, which is why the boiling point of water is so high. All right, which sample of matter has particles arranged in a crystal? If you have a crystal, it's got to be a solid. So just look for the S. There's our choice. Okay, sorry. It paused for a second. All right, which formula represents an alkane? So if I have an alkane, what happens is I go over here to my reference table, table Q. All right, here's my alkanes, alkenes, alkynes. So my alkanes are CnH doublet plus 2. So that is not doublet plus 2. That is not doublet plus 2. This one is. All right, which term is a chemical reaction? Combustion. Combustion means to burn, so that's chemically changing. Deposition is when you go from a gas to a solid, so that's just physical. Sublimation is when you go from a solid to a gas, so that's just physical. And vaporization is going from a liquid to a gas, so that's just physical. All right, which type of reaction includes esterification and polymerization? So an ester, if you are not sure, you go to this chart and you see ester on it. Organic. These are organic reactions. All right, in a redox reaction, the total of a number of electrons lost is equal to the number of electrons gained.